When I majored in music in undergrad, a group came in, played, and offered a masterclass. I asked what they did when they felt burnt out. The guy said there's no room for it in the industry, that if you're burned out, then leave. I thought that was a horrible answer. Part of the reason we have such a teacher and nurse shortage is burnout. But the classical music industry is with no shortage of talented, skilled players willing to destroy the notion of a work-life balance. I've been out of music for 5 years, and my inner voice still tells me, if you have time to watch TV, play video games, brush your teeth, sleep, breathe, you have time to practice. Hi, I'm Unkempt Snuggle Pepper, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. I have the constant need to be better, to achieve tangible goals in order to gain recognition. Unfortunately, I spin my wheels all too often. Even creating this video, I spent a long time starting and stopping on various ideas before landing here. This is 5 tips on preventing burnout and staying passionate about art. Before we get into it, what are you drawing today, Pepper? This is line work for my webcomic, Fortune's Fancy. It's about a sad, gay wizard, his apprentice, and a handsome fortune teller overcoming a lot of mental health challenges. In this section, Mir stated, in Chapter 2, that she studied under Drexel's past teacher, Bastian. Here she remembers that Bastian would tell horrible stories and still smile in a creepy way. As Drexel recounts leaving school to then study under Bastian, he begins to have an anxiety attack. If you would like to read more, Fortune's Fancy is linked down in the doobly-doo. Also in the comments, if you'll let me know if you enjoy these speed paint video essays. I never know what to talk about next. Tip number 1, enjoy the process. Imagine you have a family going to Disney or the nearest theme park. Kid 1 enjoys the car ride. He plays road games, brought lots of things to keep him busy. Kid 2 did not enjoy the ride. He is constantly asking if we're there yet. He doesn't play games or do anything to pass the time. And when they arrive, the theme park is closed. Kid 1 is sad, but not terribly upset. He at least enjoyed the ride. Kid 2 is devastated. He wanted to be here so bad, and now it's closed. We've all been Kid 2, worried about the end result more than the joy of creating. Perhaps it's the feeling that something needs to be perfect, that it needs to build our portfolio, and we're frozen staring at a blank canvas. Or we get to the ugly stage and lose hope, quickly scrapping the artwork. Maybe it's looking at other artists, dreaming of a style we can't yet achieve. Enjoying the process sounds easy, but it is deceptively hard. It helps me to think about the action of drawing, the feeling of paint on my brush, or the sound of my stylus against my tablet, or the smell of linseed oil. Sometimes we need to step away from the constant improvement, practice, or creating masterpieces, and just enjoy the simple act of making art. Enjoying art is giving yourself permission to draw something that is ugly or doesn't seem like it's going to work out. It's about using your nice art supplies instead of keeping them just for show. It can be making the art process easy and accessible, such as creating a designated area or adding your favorite music. There is a joy in zoning in. There is a joy in just zoning out and just being. This tip is mostly helpful when staring at the endless white blank page. It helps to get you started on being creative. It is an escape into art, turning away from the judgments you may have. Tip number 2, have a comfort drawing. We all have a comfort drawing. It's the character, pose, genre that you most enjoy creating. For me, it's Fortune's Fancy, the webcomic you see me working on here. I absolutely love the story and the characters I have created. I know I will probably never have an income based solely on my comic, but it wasn't created for that. In many ways, it's my own story. But a webcomic is a lot of work. Sometimes I don't have the energy to do the parts I don't like, mostly backgrounds and having to arrange text. Rather, I spend my time in a sketchbook. I give myself permission to create without letting the judgment sneak in. Another thing much easier said than done. Stopping the inner critic can be quite difficult. When I want to draw my comfort drawing, my inner critic will start up with how many times I have already drawn the character or pose or general idea. The best strategy here is to not listen, but rather give yourself permission to create something, regardless of how similar or silly it is. I use art to process emotions. I imagine whenever Mira thinks of Drexel as a child, he still has his goatee, regardless of age. So at one point I drew a baby Drexel, facial hair included. It gave me a good laugh. These 2 tips are most useful when you're beginning to feel the bit of burnout. Perhaps you are in school or work and you haven't been taking enough time to draw what makes you happy. Perhaps you're in a place of art block and can't seem to get anything to look good. When you begin to have feelings of depression or irritability, then you want to step away from art. Give yourself time to relax and truly experience life. Tip number 3, the anti-art. When I was a music major, we had a joke that you needed an anti-music. I took around 18 credit hours every semester. In addition to core classes, music classes, I also had to practice bassoon and piano. Much of my day was running around from classroom to classroom, and many evenings I had absolutely no energy to focus on homework. Art was my anti-music during this period. While I only completed 1 art class, I spent time creating between homework or when waiting for class to start. Unfortunately, creative careers like music, art, theater demand so much that they easily snuff out the joy. If a creative comfort drawing or being mindful when creating isn't enough to return the joy and the excitement in art, it's time to step away. I can't tell you how long it'll need to be, but I can tell you you'll need to make sure you step totally away. Don't think about drawing or painting. Don't scroll through social media watching other artists. Instead, look for another activity unrelated to art. I know when I create a few pieces and hate them all, that it's time to step away. My initial reaction is to push harder. If I can just get past this one thing, then everything else will be easy. But instead of having a breakthrough, I tend to have a breakdown. The paint needs time to dry. Even if you're working on a digital canvas like me, sometimes the paint just needs time to dry. Tip number 4, take care of physical health. As someone with mental health issues, I have learned that physical health matters too. If I don't sleep well at night, I am more vulnerable to being upset, either angry or crying. My blood sugar will drop before lunch, and if I don't have a snack or wait too long to eat, I become hangry or even have brain fog. And I'm by no means great at taking care of myself. I could stand some more vegetables and exercise. But taking care of my physical well-being also helps my creative well-being. Intentionally staying up late can prolong a manic episode. Burning the candles at both ends in a wild creative spree will lead to an exhausted collapse into depression. And I believe artists who don't experience bipolar do experience a similar phenomenon to this. Taking care of my illnesses, bipolar, borderline, fibromyalgia, helps in the long run. The little things I do on a daily basis keep me from swinging wildly. Tip number 5, setting healthy boundaries. I think in many other videos and articles, setting healthy boundaries is mentioned as saying no to taking on commissions that you aren't comfortable with or having a healthy work-life balance. And I don't disagree, but I think there's also setting healthy boundaries with yourself. For example, Looking at other artists and their style is something that is helpful for your growth. But if you spend too much time looking at other artists and begin to compare yourself, then you run into a problem. There's of course, a healthy way to look into art and determine what you need to incorporate in your style, or just admiring other artists. But comparison is the thief of joy, at least too much comparison. Spending hours thinking about how much better this artist is at light and that artist is at color will leave you angry and frustrated with no real progress. In this case, you're having to set the boundary with yourself. Perhaps limit which social media platforms you use, or limit the time scrolling. There is a tip that when working from home to establish different workplaces. The designated work area is reserved only for art. Bringing food or other activities can make it hard to maintain a work-life balance. I'm personally not great at this advice, as my desk tends to be a catch-all for all of my things. In this video, I wanted to cover the spectrum of burnout, from periods of art block to needing a full vacation. Preventing burnout, in my opinion, is just as important as treating it. Make sure that throughout the day you are taking breaks. When it is time to leave work mode, then leave work mode and leave it fully. Art requires passion and practice in order to improve. I think there will always be days I choose to hide a hand instead of drawing it. It even occurs a few times in this video. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give a like, leave a comment. Let me know if you like this video essay style or prefer my art critiques. I consider myself pretty new to YouTube, so I'm still experimenting with what works.